Is this thing on? Welcome back to Big Mouth, and fancy seeing you here in June. A very welcome, my friends, and especially my enemies. Come in, sit down, no touching. I don't do the touching. And welcome to Saturday's edition of the DC Movie and TV Daily. I nearly got that wrong. Right, bit of a mouthful, but welcome. It's Saturday. I'm Big Mouth, but actually, I was born and christened Mick Meaners, and you can follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad to continue the conversation. So I wake up this morning to very exciting news. Finally, James Gunn has fulfilled his prophecy and promise of revealing the cast of the Suicide Squad, and I have it right here for you. Now, if you're as an obsessive of a DC fan as I am, you already know it, but we're going to talk about this a little bit. And then afterwards, we are actually going to talk about Superman Flyby. I'm actually going to read the actual story that J.J. Abrams came out with, and I'm going to tell you why. I actually regret that was never made into a film, and I'm really looking forward to this inevitable situation of him actually writing and directing a Superman movie. But don't forget, JJ was very young when he did that movie. Obviously, he's learned a lot since then, but it'll be very interesting what he's learned, especially from his Star Wars experience, which I suppose has been problematic for him. I think The Force Awakens, even though it's a rip-off of A New Hope, he had to go that way, I think. It nearly got, what was it? A lot of money, wasn't it? Was it? I can't remember. Was it about nearly 3 billion? Was it? I can't remember. Anyway, it made a hell of a lot of money. Anyway, let's talk about this cast for the Suicide Squad. So we have David Dastmalchian, who's new. John Cena, who wasn't in the first film. Jay Courtney's back from the original. Joaquin Cosio. Obviously, not a new character. Nathan Fillion, we all know Nathan, he's brand new. Joel Kinnaman's back from the original. Great to see Joel. I thought he was absolutely fantastic in the first film. Mei Ling, don't know. I'm not sure if she was in the first film. Flula Borg. Sean Gunn, of course, is James Gunn's brother. He gets into the film, of course. He's quite a talented guy, actually. Juan Diego Botto, Storm Reed. Pete Davidson is the Saturday Night Live guy. An interesting piece of casting. We'll see who he's going to play. Taiki Waititi, of course, who's the director of Thor Ragnarok and the upcoming director of Thor Love and Thunder. Obviously, a very interesting piece of casting, and we'll see what he's doing in the movie. Alice Braga, Steve Agee, Tinashe Kajis, Daniela Moshaw, Peter Capaldi, obviously very exciting as a Doctor Who fan, Julio Ruiz, Jennifer Holland, great casting. Viola Davis is back from the first film. One of the best things from the first film, wasn't she? Idris Elba is brand new. Margot Robbie, this is beautiful confirmation. I was a bit worried that she wasn't going to be in this movie, and we were going to find out she wasn't actually involved. But I'm so happy she's involved, and she's great. Michael Rooker. Now, this is a bit controversial, not because Michael Rooker's a controversial figure, because he's a great actor. And, of course, he worked with James Gunn in both the first two Guardians of the Galaxy movies, but he denied he was involved with this film. He categorically denied it and actually seemed quite disgusted and angry that he was even linked to it. And all of a sudden, it's obvious he was bantering us at the time, because here he is, Michael Rooker will kind of reunite with James Gunn for the Suicide Squad. Now, they've taken the Suicide Squad logo is an interesting one, because for the first film it was very pink, it was very brash. This is actually taken from one of the comics. Now, James Gunn is a notoriously passionate Suicide Squad fan. So, but also, since Walter Hamada took over the DC movie property, all the films have been very, very comic book accurate to some era or the other. So we saw the Aquaman costume very faithful to a version of the comics. We saw Shazam actually mix that costume with old and new 52, which was very exciting. And obviously, I think this is what's going to happen going forward. They are going to try and be more comic book accurate, which I think is fantastic. Because I think you can use your imagination and not necessarily take storylines from the comics. But I think you should at least, because without the artists and the costumes they design, right, you ain't got a comic. You ain't got characters and you ain't got movies, right? because these movies are inspired really from the artwork more than the stories. That's how I believe. That's how I see it. So I think you can pay your damn respect to these facts, because comic book artists are the best thing about comic books, right? They sat there, worked hard to design an awesome suit. You can at least take that. As I said to you before, it's staggering to me. As much as I love the MOS Superman costume and the BVS one, right? It's staggering for me that we've never seen Superman wear a comic book accurate suit. It's ridiculous. We've never seen him wear his kind of Action Comics 1 costume. Absolutely ridiculous. So that's the cast. I hope you're as excited as I am. I'm very excited. This is quite a talented cast. I can't wait to see them together. Basically, this film goes into production in a week or so. So very, very excited for that. So that's James Gunn's The Suicide Squad. That's the cast list, and it starts shooting very soon. And as I say, if they've done 2 or 3 months worth just before Christmas, we may see a teaser trailer. But we're going to see on-set pics. This is really, really exciting. So now, I don't know why I've just thrown my device over there, because I want to talk about Superman Flyby, and on that device there is the flipping story. So what am I doing? So let's have a look. Let's see if we can find it. Where are we? Here we are. Right, let's have a look at this. Now, I'll be honest, I was watching the Ping Pong Flick, which is done by the fabulous Chris Wong-Spencer, and he was talking about this film. He was talking about J.J. Abrams. And you know what? Every time I do something, he does it 20 times better. The guy's so good. So you should really follow Chris Wong-Spencer on the Ping Pong Flicks here on YouTube. He's absolutely awesome. But let's talk about Superman Flyby. This is a Superman movie written by J.J. Abrams. A Superman movie he never got to make. And it's a big bone of contention for him. And, he's been working all his life to get in to the Superman movie division. So when he said he wanted to get in to work with certain producers from the Warner Brothers movie division, he's been trying to get here for many years. But now he's at Warner Brothers, not just as a creative, but as a very powerful figure. He pretty much is going to be running the company. He will be able to bring very big names to this company. People involved with the DCEU you could never imagine would be involved with the DCEU. Very, very interesting times ahead. And could he be the Feige of the DCEU? I'm happy with Walter Hamada, by the way. Let me be clear. I don't want him replacing. But it would be very interesting if you could kind of get JJ involved as well. It will be, look, he's going to make a Superman film, right? He could make loads of Superman films. There's going to be an arc. I think what's happened with the DCEU and the DC film property under Walter Hamada, he had to take control because it was, after Justice League, it was a mess. And he's fixed things. But I think there's a very interesting situation here with J.J. Abrams. And we'll see if he takes over the DC movie universe. He's going to be doing a lot of work. But I think he wants to go back to writing and directing and get away from the business side. So I definitely think that there could be an opportunity here where he at least works with Walter Hamada, alongside Walter Hamada within the DC world of films. Or maybe the DCEU element will be J.J. Abrams' baby and Walter will focus more on the Black Label. So very, very exciting times if you're a DC fan. So let's read this. Turning in his script. Right, Superman Flyby. So turning in his script in July 2002, J.J. Abrams' Superman Flyby was an origin story that included Krypton besieged by a civil war, which actually is my idea. I've written a couple of stories about this as well. Between Jor-El and his corrupt brother, Kal-El. Before Kal-El sentences Jor-El to prison, Kal-El is launched to Earth to fulfill a prophecy. Adopted by Jonathan and Martha Kent, he forms a romance with Lois Lane in the Daily Planet. However, Lois is more concerned with exposing Lex Luthor, written as a government agent obsessed with UFO phenomenon. Clark reveals himself to the world as Superman, bringing Kal-El's son, Tyzor, and 3 other Kryptonians to Earth. Now, of course, this is very kind of similar, I suppose, to the 3 villains from Krypton in Superman 2. So let's just read this before we judge. Superman is defeated and killed and visits Jor-El, who committed suicide on Krypton. while in prison. In Kryptonian heaven, resurrected, he returns to Earth and defeats the 4 Kryptonians, while the script ends with Superman off to Krypton, leaving a cliffhanger for a sequel. Now, this is again very interesting because I actually wrote a previous piece of Superman fiction, and not the one I've spoken about on here many a times and bored you about. Sorry about that. I actually had that Superman is kind of pulled in 2 directions, and even in the comics, and even in the TV show Smallville, who he is. Does he embrace his Kryptonian heritage, or does he embrace his human side, right? And that's what I wanted to do. And I wanted him in the end to have this big decision. Do I stay on Earth? Do I protect the galaxy? Or do I go back to Krypton? So obviously Krypton still exists in this form, which is really interesting. Now, a lot of people would lose their absolute collective shit if Krypton isn't destroyed. Not me. I like different stories. I like things going in powerful new directions. And you know what? Awesome. Would have been amazing. Brett Ratner was hired to direct in September 2002, originally expressing an interest in casting an unknown for the lead role. While filming was to start sometime in late 2003, Ratner approached Josh Hartnett and Jude Law as Superman, but conceded that finding a famous actor for a title role had proven difficult because of contractual obligations to appear in sequels. No star wants to sign that, but as much as I've told Jude and Josh my vision for the movie, I warned them of the consequences of being Superman. There's no consequences. It's a great honour. They'll live this character for 10 years. Yes, it's an honour. Because I'm telling one story over 3 movies and plan to direct all 3. If the first is as successful as everyone expects, Hartnett was offered $100 million for a 3-picture deal, but turned down the offer. Although Superman Flyby was being met with a budget exceeding $200 million, not including money spent on Superman Reborn, Superman Lives, and Batman vs Superman, the studio was still adamant for a summer 2004 release date. Christopher Walken was in negotiations for Perry White, which would have been amazing, but actually, Walken would have been wasted on Perry White. I mean, Walken would have been an awesome Lex Luthor, for crying out loud. While Ratner expressed an interest in casting Anthony Hopkins as Jor-El and Ralph Fiennes as Lex Luthor, alright, Ralph Fiennes as Lex Luthor would be even better, of his cast members in Red Dragon, Christopher Reeve was to be a project consultant, citing Tom Welling, who portrayed the teenage Clark Kent in Smallville, as an ideal candidate. Reeve added, the character is more important than the actor who plays him because it's an enduring mythology. It definitely should be an unknown. In addition, Paul Walker was offered the role, while Ashton Kutcher screen tested and Brendan Fraser and Matthew Boom auditioned. Bomber. I think Bomber would have been interesting, but those other names are no way Superman. Kushner decided not to accept the role. Of course he did. All these things where you hear they turned it down, of course they didn't turn it down. Basically, they were wrong for the role, and the people and the creators knew that. Citing scheduling conflicts with that 70s show and the Superman shut up. As well as typecasting, Jerry O'Connell expressed interest for the role. Jerry O'Connell is a very short man, great actor, I love him, but he's not Superman either. While David Boreanaz auditioned, no, this is crazy, isn't it? But dropped out due to scheduling conflicts with Angel. Victor Webster did an entire screen test that included a wardrobe as both Clark Kent and Superman, while James Marsden met the director, Brett Ratner. I tell you what, I don't even know why Ratner was ever involved in a Superman project. Joe Egerton, who turned down the chance to audition as Superman, auditioned for Ty Zor before Ratner dropped out of the project in March 2003, blaming casting difficulties, the violent disagreements with John Peters. You see, John Peters is a loon, we know that. He's very passionate, he's quite a big Superman fan. He doesn't have a clue how to make a Superman movie, by the way. But I think, Brett, this is all you. MG returned as director while Fraser expressed interest, but had fears of typecasting. Simon Blair was in talks for Lois Lane, which would have been interesting, while ESC Entertainment was hired for visual effects work, with King Liberty as visual effects supervisor and Stan Winston designing a certain prototype suit. Merc G approached Shia LaBeouf for Jimmy Olsen. Interesting, I would have loved, that would have been good, with an interest to cast an unknown for Superman. Scarlett Johansson as Lois Lane, yes, I'll take that, and Johnny Depp for Lex Luthor, yes, that would have been awesome. Neil H. Moritz and Gilbert Adler were set to produce the film. McG also commissioned Josh Schwartz to rewrite the Abrams script. Josh Schwartz! Are we really going down the pecking order? Jesus Christ! He wanted to shoot in Canada, which would have cost $25 million more than WB's preferred Australian location. And McG also shot test footage with several candidates, including Jason Behr, Henry Cavill, Jared Padalecki. You see, Jared Padalecki isn't a particularly strong actor. I like him in Supernatural, by the way. But actually, he's tall. He's got black hair. He would have been interesting, I think. And Michael Cassidy, before blaming budgetary concerns. Now, I love Michael Cassidy. Michael Cassidy is a great actor. Michael Cassidy, of course, was in Smallville, was in The OC, and was in Batman v Superman as Jimmy Olsen. Well, was he Jimmy Olsen? Who knows, anyway. Blaming budgetary concerns. And filming location. He opted to shoot in New York City in Canada, but Warner Bros. Wanted Sydney, Australia. McG felt it was inappropriate to try to capture the heart of America on another continent. That's what make-believe's all about, McG, mate. He later admitted it was his fear of flying. Abrams lobbied for the chance to direct his script, but Warner Brothers replaced McG with Bryan Singer, and the rest is history, of course. And I think that's all from that article. So basically, right, let's forget all the problems with the directors, and you know what? It was his script. JJ should have absolutely been allowed to direct that movie. If it happened, look, it really would have triggered a lot of people. But come on, look what they were doing with Superman Lives. Nicolas Cage. I mean, Tim Burton, I love his movies, but he doesn't understand who Superman is. Again, it would have been an interesting Superman film to see, and I would have loved to have seen it and make my mind about it. And he claims like the rubbish kind of test screenings we've seen on YouTube, it wouldn't have looked like that. But anyway, that's in the past. So his script is very, very interesting. You know, basically, Krypton's in civil war, but not destroyed. We find out later that Jor-El kills himself in prison, which is very tragic. My problem with that is I don't mind Jor-El being in a kind of Kryptonian heaven, and that's the way Superman kind of gets to go back after he's killed. That's exciting and that's interesting. I like that. But the idea of Jor-El killing himself, that's not who Jor-El is. No. Jor-El sacrificed himself in the original story, and he allowed himself to die on Krypton when he exploded for his son, because he knew that his people had his time. He'd make the ultimate sacrifice. But Jor-El doing such a cowardly thing like suicide, to me, that's not faithful to the character. So that's one thing I don't agree with JJ about. But the rest of it sounds really, really exciting. And I know J.J. Abrams was quite inexperienced at the time and obviously had only just started getting into the game. He's just started doing Alias. Lost was a few years away. So he wasn't a prominent figure in the industry. The J.J. Abrams of now, if he wanted a Superman film, he'd get one. So just imagine, J.J. Abrams has just walked in the halls of power at Warner Media. He's thinking, I'm here finally. I've been kind of working with Warner Brothers TV for years, but that's TV. I'm here in the film division. This is amazing. Oh my God, he says to his wife, Miss McGrath, oh my God, calm down, JJ, calm down. I want to do a Superman film. Who do I ask? But it's okay, JJ, you're the boss now. You can do anything you want. You mean I can actually make Superman? Yes. And that's the situation here. J.J. Abrams can actually make a Superman film if he wants to. Now, as we've said before, J.J.'s got a lot of fingers in a lot of pies. But he's going back to being a creative again. He's going back to being a writer and a director again. That's exciting. There is no better writer-director on the planet than J.J. Abrams. Don't tell me the guy who co-created Lost, the guy who wrote and directed many, many episodes of Alias, who created Alias, who was the one who came up with this brilliant female spy action hero at a time when it wasn't fashionable to have female leads. Don't tell me this man doesn't know what he's doing and we're all citing him as useless all of a sudden. No, he's a hero of mine, a creative hero of mine. For Alias, for Lost, I thought The Force Awakens was a very good film. Look, don't tell me you weren't excited after you saw The Force Awakens with all the little threads and arcs he left there. The mystery box thing, Some people don't like it. I think if done well, the mystery box thing is kind of interesting. And nobody does the mystery box thing better than Abrams. And let me tell you something. How many of you, after you saw that film, go, oh, who's this one related to? And who's Ray? And what's this? And the only reason you all got bummed out by Star Wars was The Last Jedi, where a director came in and goes, do you know what, JJ? Fuck you. We're not doing any of these things. We're going to have all these shocking kind of twists, but it just means all the good, exciting stuff you set up will be gone and everyone will be bored of the movie and hate me. But hey, I'm just here to troll everyone. I'm Ryan Johnson. Anyway, right? So J.J. Abrams is a very clever man. He's a very clever creative. There's no one better to create a Superman franchise for the DCEU than J.J. Abrams. But what does he do? Does he do a Man of Steel sequel? Does he keep Henry Cavill? I'd love Henry Cavill to be kept. It's going to be a very, very interesting situation. And also, the Ben Affleck situation is very interesting, isn't it? J.J. Abrams is longtime friends with Ben's former wife, right, who obviously played Sydney Bristow in Alias, a wonderful actress, a wonderful person who's been very faithful and loyal to Ben. So there's so many connections. J.J. Abrams, of course, is good friends with Zack Snyder. He didn't waste any time in bringing in Chris Terrio to write The Rise of Skywalker with him, which was a very controversial and brave decision on JJ's part. Again, this is in Chris Terrio, there's a man who co-wrote Batman and v Superman: Dawn of Justice, a much divisive, film. But still, JJ went and got him. That's one of the things that kind of intrigues me and excites me about The Rise of Skywalker. JJ is going to want to leave Star Wars in a great position. So that's why I think Star Wars fans will ultimately... There's a lot still wanting to hate it and trying to stir situations, but I think JJ's got this, and I think it's going to be an awesome movie. So bringing in Chris Terrio, so the connections with Zack Snyder and the DCEU are there all over. So it's going to be interesting what decisions are taken. And I've discussed this already with the Snyder Cut. So we are really in very, very interesting times. His Superman film is happening, have no doubt. The only question remains now, what type of kind of timetable have we got here? Well, what do you think of all of this? Do you like the idea of Superman Flyby? I think elements of it, apart from the Jor-El suicide, are freaking awesome, and I would have loved to have seen that film. And what do you think of the newly announced cast list for James Gunn's The Suicide Squad? I must say I'm really, really excited. So please subscribe. Please share the videos. Please tick the notification bell so you don't miss anything. Because when anything breaks within the DC movies or TV world, I will be straight here to fill you in. And there was yet another Watchmen trailer. I'm so excited for HBO's The Watchmen. It looks really, really good. And I think there's a lot of faithfulness to the comics too. And yes, Damon Lindelof. Yes, he was the guy who co-created Lost alongside Jeffrey Lieber and J.J. Abrams. So there's another J.J. Abrams connection within a DC TV show with a DC property. So it's very, very exciting times to be a DC fan.